Welcome back to It's Data Habibi, a podcast we've designed to explore challenges across the world of data and AI. In the last episode, we tackled agentic AI, and today we're going into a deep dive on AI ROI and the problems that people are not thinking about today. Almost every organization we're speaking to is investing in AI in some form. So pilots, proof of concepts, internal tools, customer-facing use cases. And as AI moves from experimentation into production, very different conversations need to be happening across your business and leadership. So what is the progress we're making on this? And what is the expected ROI that we should be thinking about when we're looking at AI projects? So today, we have some very special guests. We have Dr. Cooper and Tim Aldrige. So thank you very much, guys, for both joining us today. And let's go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience. So Chris, if you would.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks very much for the warm invite. Great to be here on Habibi Data. Look, long story short, been here in the region now for circa 20 years. I've always been focused on data, always focused on leveraging insights to improve customer outcomes. The last couple of years in particular, heavily focused in the AI space, took a AI unicorn or starter to a unicorn status, 1.4 billion valuation. And these days I'm advising a number of different AI startups, semiconductor companies, looking at how they can leverage the network that I have and bring together to help them and support them.
Very good. Thank you very much for joining us today. And Tim?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Luke, for having me here. So Tim Aldrige, I've been in IT solution selling for over 20 years in the enterprise space. More recently, 5.5 years, United Arab Emirates in cloud, specifically more so AI now. And great to be involved in the podcast and contribute to this series.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you. Right. So let's dive right in. So, we're looking at topics today around AI ROI and why it can be more difficult to define than perhaps traditional technologies and software that enterprises that have been familiar and operating for quite some time. So, I think let's start off with, are executives actually interested in the ROI of AI solutions, or are they just jumping on that bandwagon, do you think? So, Chris, perhaps we'll start with your thoughts.
It always makes me smile. Look, the bottom line is everyone is investing in AI now. Sadly, a lot of it is still because of FOMO, fear of missing out. And the one thing that we're learning as we've gone from 25 into 26 now is that those purse strings are being watched. So there's a bit more of a free-for-all over the last year, 18 months, to allow people to start investing and start to reap some benefits from AI. But you need to make sure that what you're investing in is actually returning value. So what we're seeing more and more now is the CFOs and the leadership saying, hang on, you want us to invest in here? What's the return on investment over what time period? So it really is focusing people's minds to ensure that all the right aspects of AI are there to drive value and as quick as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, from your experience, kind of what are you seeing with the conversations you're having with those IT and technical
Yeah,
leaders?
I think it's a really good question. I think, if you look at, let's go back in time. If you look at cloud, I think there's a lot of CXOs that had eaten the we've got to go public cloud book, and I think a lot of them rushed out there, to get into public cloud. So eventually, when everybody says, you're going cloud, we automatically think public cloud, and it's usually the couple of big players there. Now, if you look at the history, those people that maybe moved an organization to public cloud, probably after a few years left, because people started to realize when they looked under the hood, that actually maybe the promises of what was being committed by that CXO actually weren't delivered. Because my concern is that's what's happening here with AI. Going to your point around FOMO, fear of missing out. There are these CXOs that are going, I've got to move, and actually they're just moving quickly. But what I do think is more so now than probably with the say, let's all move to public cloud kind of venture. And I think public cloud is good for the right data in the right place. But when you look at AI, it's more of a business decision. And I think to your point, I think CFOs, the wider business exec team is getting more involved into actually, well, what is AI for our organization? And actually, it's deeper than just letting one person say, let's go and do it. I think it'd be good to get you a bit more of your opinion on this. I think it's more of more stakeholders making that decision rather than just maybe an IT organization.
I think the other key thing as well is, public cloud was a big thing. Cloud was a big thing. It's still a big thing, but data sovereignty is really leading the way now. And we've only got to look at the investments here in the region. You've just seen the announcements in data sovereignty. It's sovereignty in Qatar. They've just invested $20 billion. In Saudi, $40 billion. This is not chump change.
Yeah.
And here in the UAE, $100 billion. I mean, these are phenomenal numbers, but it's all around sovereignty. And I think that's where I see the shift now.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're looking at sovereignty, in my personal opinion, is because they're really focused on making sure that they're not getting the false positives.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that data is clean, it's succinct, and they're not bringing in external factors that can sway the results.
Yeah, but Chris, I mean, don't you feel they're right? And again, whereas again, from my point of view, when I look at when someone's making a decision to go, right, we've got to go invest in cloud, and that still happens today, it's probably one part of the organization making that decision, which is IT. I think now when you look at some of the AI projects, certainly I've been involved in, and I've seen my teams be involved in the past, it's not just IT making that decision now. It's a broader stakeholder mapping, from the real business lines. Is it HR? And obviously finance. Is it the sales organization? So I think there's more people in the cooker agreed. Making that decision, which again makes me think like, yes, you can go to AI for fear of missing out, but actually I think there's more people on the hook if they make that decision.
Trust me, if they're doing it for fear of missing out, they won't be doing it for long.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's actually a really interesting point. So one of the things that we regularly discuss with our customers is that your data is not a technical challenge. It's not a technology challenge, an IT challenge. It is a business challenge. And you actually need to have that framework to address that, get those foundations in place and enable your AI use cases. And I think that's where it comes on to those, like that broader ROI discussion, right? It's not just within the technology department or data department anymore. It is more, you need to understand it more broadly across the organization. And actually just kind of on that then, so where do you think some of the challenges and differences are substantially different from AI from what they were in understanding the costs of operating kind of traditional?
Let me get into a positive rather than challenges. That's the opportunities. I mean, absolutely. 2025 was the year of all these signing of infrastructure deals. Whether you're looking at the UAE, whether you're looking at Saudi with Humane and others, it was all about signing these big infrastructure deals, putting the infrastructure on the ground. Stargate UAE is a classic example. 2026 is about delivering value from the solutions you're building on that infrastructure. Now, again, three things you need for AI. Good quality data, we'll come to that in a sec. You need good quality infrastructure. It's there in place. It's been committed, all the rest of it. And the third thing is the SMEs, the subject matter experts that are also coming from the industry to enable them to mimic the real world environments with the code and the algorithms they're building and the large language models. But back to that data quality, it's down to organizations now. I mean, we heard it said many, many times, I've come from the energy industry, data is the new oil. And it's true.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not just a coined expression, it's a fact. That's where the value is. So organizations now are starting to understand, realize that, and starting to investigate and understand, are there errors in their data? Are there areas that they need to improve in terms of the data quality from an ingest perspective? Because at the end of the day, whatever you put in as a quality determines the value of what you're going to generate on an AI model. So you better make sure that you're putting high quality, high value data in to extrapolate as much value as you possibly can from an ROI perspective.
No, I agree with that. A couple of, I'll quote you, Luke. One of the big things I've always taken away from a conversation we had like 3 or 4 months ago was around, you walk into a library, if the library's messy, you're going to struggle to find the book, versus a library that's clean, it's in alphabetical order, it's in subject order. I think I was giving that analogy to an MD of one of the largest SIs in the UAE. He totally agreed with it, and he was really encouraging that. Yeah, if there's any future growth you want to look at, it's talking about me personally, you should really look at how you're going to get involved in data, whether it's data strategy, data automation or data governance. And he says so many organizations, get it wrong. I think to your point around, why is it such a hard to drive real ROI on AI? It's because going back to, we're picking on cloud here, it's a bit unfair, but let's pick on cloud, get longer, right? It's quite, if you're going to move from one cloud to another, whether it's another public cloud to another public cloud, or on-prem to public cloud, or public cloud to on-prem, there's a measurement of savings you're going to make, whether it's around infrastructure costs, or it's around, because you've outsourced it, people costs, hosting costs, right? I think with AI, and again, look to Chris for his view here, right? It's around, there are some unknowns, because AI is going to be changing. When you said at the start, what was here yesterday is not here today, and certainly not in 3 years' time. So it's ever changing, and the AI tools are ever learning. Yeah, and then you put into the fact that actually more and more data is being pumped into this. Actually, it's more, I guess, more some of the human side of it, like the less tangible kind of KPIs that AI is going to be delivering to, which again, some people don't quite see them. The other final piece is actually, going back to my earlier point, is AI is touching so many different parts of the business now. There are so many different stakeholders that for a CIO, very clear cut what their ROIs are, right? Moving from public cloud to on-prem, on-prem to public cloud, or to a different cloud. But what's HR's ROI on AI? What's sales ROI on AI? Chris?
Just me, everyone. I mean, the organization I came from, every single business was measured in their personal KPIs, leadership all the way down. Focus on what's the incremental value you can drive from AI and digital technologies. Now, I personally think that's a great thing to do. So every aspect of the business is measured, whether it's human capital, whether it's health and safety, whatever business it is, okay? IT, everything should be measured, because AI is on steroids, okay? I mean, we talked about AI a couple of years ago, right? And then we started moving into LLMs and SLMs. Now we're talking about agents and agentic, okay? The challenge now becomes people are now relying on agents to work in the background, because you build an agent, you set it running, you set hundreds of agents running on your data, and that's running 24/7. That is driving incredible productivity for that organization. But the question becomes, how do you know for sure that you've got the right guardrails in place to ensure that that agent or those sets of agents are actually driving the right value for that organization? Because as we touched on it before this session started, tokens. All of a sudden, you're spending a fortune on tokens. Yeah, and people are unawares of this. So everything needs to be measured, monitored, and you do need to have those guardrails. I'm really pleased you touched on the governance piece, because again, I do see now it's often been the cart before the horse in this respect. Whether it's ethics, governance, compliance, but no, it's front and center now, because there's got to be an accountability.
But clearly, from what I'm reading, clearly the market's spooked, right? You look at some of the reports that have come out through some of the different media channels, MIT talking around that 95% of AI projects are failing, aren't delivering value. You look at, I think NVIDIA's results are coming out in the near future, and the market's suggesting actually that their share price won't go as high as everybody hopes, because it's wrong just to pick on NVIDIA, but you look across the whole market, people's stock prices aren't where people think they should be, because the market's nervous around it, because where is the value?
Yeah, and I think there's some really interesting points, like talking about the tokenization, how much you're able to use it. Some great use cases that we all can point to, and we call this the AI iceberg. So it's that shiny beacon of really well-defined use cases at the top that, again, the bandwagon that we talked about, people jumping on. But you have to understand, everything underneath the surface. And I think the challenge for the CTOs and people responsible for deploying solutions across organizations is still that actually, does the solution even need to be AI at the minute? Because is it the right tool for the job? Now, as costs and economies change, exactly. And, if it works well and you can demonstrate the value, then I think, I think you've got some good opportunities there. But where do you think that these pilots are starting to come through, and when they look successful and then are failing to be deployed across kind of enterprise-wide deployment, where do you think people are going wrong with that?
Well, I think the first misconception we need to understand is when we talk about pilots today, the results of those pilots are already having an impact on share prices. We saw it happen over the weekend. Yeah, you bring out a new release of a product, and some refer to it as a wrapper, and all of a sudden, share prices of a number of organizations plummet considerably. Now, if you go back a year, 2 years ago, on that kind of technology, it wouldn't have an impact on the share price. But people are now, I wouldn't say jumpy, but there's a lot more variations, there's a lot more susceptibility in the marketplace now, looking at how AI is developing and what can be yearned from AI, particularly in the agentic space.
Yeah, absolutely. And how you apply that again as a business challenge rather than just being from a technical focus, or being owned and closed within IT. Tim, kind of.
Yeah, I think around the pilot side, there's a lot of, I've seen a lot of enterprise customers, certainly in 2025, rush into doing pilots in public cloud. Public cloud's been good for that because it's there, it's accessible, easy charging model. I think where the challenges come is around, we've touched on it a number of times in this session already, data. I think like in any kind of pilot lab environment, it's a controlled environment, a controlled set of data in there. I think when you go big bang, you've got to stop your AI hallucinating, right? And you've got to make sure it's got access to all their data pockets to give a true transparency and true, honest view. And I think that's difficult if you're going from a pilot into real life and you haven't got all those stakeholders across the whole of the CXO aligned, the whole culture aligned to it, and you haven't done your homework, you haven't done your setup, including like the library analogy. You haven't got this nice tidy library or multiple libraries all connected. That's where.
Can I pose a question to both of you? Put this on its head. Okay. Pilots. Do you think they're justified? Because in my experience, I see the immediate reaction is when you need an AI solution, you start to build it rather than looking at what's already available commercial off the shelf that can fit the bill, rather than having to invest in it yourself. Take something commercial off the shelf that's proven, tried, tested, and works.
But it's interesting. There's a certain big GPU vendor out there that I've already mentioned that is very good at that. They've already got the use cases. They've got thousands of them already set up.
But they provide the libraries, SDKs.
Absolutely. So there's a good point there. That is pilot just a waste of money when you could short circuit and go straight into something live? Potentially. I agree.
I'm just saying, based on my experience, I've seen it in action where the immediate reaction is, I've got to go and build it. Rather than necessarily, look how things are developing, maturing so fast in the marketplace. New solutions are available every day.
And I think you're touching on another point around, say from an infrastructure point of view, people out there thinking, and maybe it's justifying people's jobs and stuff. Oh, it's complicated. Don't worry, CEO, CFO, it's complicated, but I've got this, but I need this investment. I need to build all this, and it could take a long time. Plus to bring in multiple vendors. Whereas you could either just go public cloud, or you could look at those providers who actually have AI in a box already to go on-prem and speed delivery.
I think that's part of understanding the available toolkits that are emerging and coming out. And I think one of the challenges is, how do enterprise adopt these solutions, because they're coming out almost as fast as you can understand them to be able to deploy them. So I think actually the real successful companies will not be the one who fully adopt AI as a just as a tool in their business processes, but as an organization that can quickly switch between these solutions as they come out. One really good analogy we were discussing in a different forum the other day is the impact on the markets that you talked about, with traditional kind of SaaS and software companies going into this decline because the view that you can just develop your own solution off the shelf. So why would companies buy kind of off the shelf when they can develop them themselves? Now, we're all old enough to remember when someone probably had an Access database sat running in someone's satellite office that all of a sudden became a business critical kind of process, or critical to that business process. Do you think that we're in that danger of going down the AI solutions and creating all of these individual little solutions for multiple things, and being back in that same scenario as we were then, where these quickly spun up solutions become critical to large enterprise business processes? So what are your thoughts on that?
I'll happily take that one, even though we're being ageist.
Yeah, you start.
Look, I've got a lot of grey hairs to prove it. AI is just about extracting insights from data. Yeah. Let's be let's dumb it down. Yeah. Back to basics, okay?
Bring your data to life.
Back in the 90s, I was working in the energy and utilities sector, and we were using data analytics to determine when to turn turbines on and off in power stations. So you didn't get them all coming on at the same time, basically connecting to SCADA systems. Okay, so now we're at a different point. We're now at the point where you're now moving to agentic. So you've got the tools, but now with agentic, you haven't just got the LLMs and the tools, you've now got arms to actually take actions. So the opportunity is abundant. Back to your question about the software, the SaaS organizations, we also need to understand that a lot of these software products were designed and architected probably 20, 25 years ago. Yeah? They're clunky. I'm sorry to say it. Now, they'll say they're AI enabled because they'll bring a bit of AI and have it as like a wrapper to show how they're leveraging AI. But if you look, and I'm working with a number of new startup SaaS companies today, and the way they're architecting it is with AI at the core. And those organizations are the ones that are going to accelerate with extraordinary speed. So keep an eye out for those. It comes back to the architecture. We all know, as you said, we've been around for a few years, Tim. Yeah. At the end of the day, HPC, what was it dependent on? It was your bandwidth. Yeah. It was your compute. Okay. The laws of physics. Then we come out with GPUs. Yeah. TPUs. Yeah. Yeah. It's another technology. But if you can look at a different architecture for the way in which you're orchestrating how that data is transferred, that's the game changer.
And being able to apply it to the right use case, i.e. you have a clear understanding of the use case and you want to use the...
Absolutely. But this is why it's critical, Luke, that you bring in the SMEs from the industry as well. This isn't an IT problem to solve. This relies on the industry experts. So you bring them in to work hand in hand with the software engineers on mimicking those real world environments to understand how you make something autonomous.
Yeah. And Tim, your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I think there's a danger that you suddenly get these small pockets of people that are starting to write code. Yeah, and AI is going to help them write the code and fast track it. And it's going to end up in, a big enterprise organization that, performing a serious role. Yeah. But then are you relying on that small team who hasn't got the big governance and the big, experiences of like some of the big classic enterprise software vendors there are today, right? You've taken a very niche company that's done great jobs using AI to write this code, built from the ground up, but is it still niche? And with all the kind of T's and C's that come with a big US software corporation, will you have those as protection? Because ultimately, it does come down to human accountability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you've got this small software niche that's been built using AI, and there's a lot of them coming up now, which is why I think some of the big SaaS software vendors have seen their share prices dip because the market's spooked by this, right? But I go back to it, the human accountability. Do you want that big US corporation that's in the FTSE 100 being accountable, or for something serious, like a real, mission critical? Or do you want to be this niche software AI company that, are they going to last the test of time?
Yeah, and I think that's all part of this new world that's coming out. From our point of view, I think we're looking back at those, like saying, some examples from the 90s, where is there some kind of learnings and lessons we need to take from that era to apply to this new AI era that we're in now. And just on your point, do you think that enterprises and companies deploying AI solutions are underestimating that kind of human element of the end-to-end solution?
I do. I think ultimately, as I've said a number of times during this podcast, I think there's a number of more stakeholders involved around delivering a true AI strategy. It does have to come from all stakeholders in the boardroom being aligned to it. I think there is a human aspect to it around culture, that has to change if you're going to effectively deliver an AI strategy. And I think organizations, big and small, really do underestimate that culture, that people change. Chris,
you raise a really good point. It is a massive cultural shift that's required. I've seen that, and the first thing we did, we dealt with the elephant in the room. As soon as we started talking about AI, everyone was concerned it's going to take their jobs. So we dealt with the elephant in the room and hit it head on, and we educated everyone on purpose. I mean, part of us were thinking, does this mean they're now going to be educated and look to leave for other roles? But actually, they were relishing the fact that the organization had invested in them, which is really important. So that mindset shift, because then what happened was, rather than the organization looking for business problems to solve, the individuals, the feet on the street inside the business at all levels started going, hang on, I think there's an opportunity here for AI. So they were coming forward with the ideas with their SME experience, where they felt there was challenges they were maybe facing in their day-to-day role. It could be around health and safety, but where they felt that AI could and should play an important part. That's how you deal with the cultural shift in the mindset. You bring the people along with the journey, because AI is a journey. I mean, as we said, right from physical raw data AI to generative, to agentic, it's a journey. AGI, it's a complete journey, and it will keep transforming industries.
Yeah, and for enterprises with their teams to create that framework to have those discussions within the business, right? Like you say, those people doing the roles are the ones best placed to come up with the solutions. And you're going to elevate your data maturity as an organization if you build that framework and create that environment within your organization.
It's also important, Luke, that as you bring them along that journey with you, they also, to Tim's point, they also need to understand accountability. Because if you're going to deploy an AI model, you need to be sure you've got the right guardrails around that. And there's a reason why in a lot of organizations, you can't just go to the external market, taking an LLM and put it into your enterprise systems, okay? Because that's taking data from external factors. And that brings in cyber risk and all the rest of it. So individuals need to understand their position in accountability and traceability of what they're doing, what they're deploying, how and why they're doing it.
Yeah, very good. So to come back to a bit more of the kind of cost side of things, some of those we talked about in infrastructure and tokens, but when we're talking about that total cost of ownership of a AI solution, what do you think are some of the hidden costs that are catching people out, do you think? Tim?
I think it's the cost of change of the culture, people. I think people underestimate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a big one. I think it's around, certainly, where is your data kept? I think that's another one. Obviously, AI can be quite intuitive. Sorry. So if it's all kept in public cloud, are you prepared for the costs that come with that? Have you already costed that in? Is that part of the cost model? about what you think your ROI looks like versus, being on-prem. I think, another aspect of this is what is the target? If you're gonna implement a project, if you're gonna implement AI, have you got set targets that you want to hit, whether soft KPIs or hard numbers?
And I think that's a really important point, actually, because again, we have different models available that we could be using, come with different amounts of processing power. So what level of result is it that is good enough for my objective that I'm trying to achieve? And, I don't necessarily need a Ferrari to get to a result if, the kind of money.
I mean, here's an example of it, right? So, an enterprise organization deploying, an AI project today, maybe on-prem, have they, and if they've run out of storage, with the way memory costs have gone right now, it's gone through the roof. So actually, what's the cost of that now, where suddenly your infrastructure costs are doubling, tripling, and you've promised your board that you're going to deliver this value, but it's all changed. So again, these are some of the hidden things, I guess, the external economic factors.
Some really good points. I think I'd like to really hone in on sovereignty, data sovereignty. That's such a key player, particularly in this region, and it's becoming more and more prevalent now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is to ensure that you're not getting the false positives, you've got clean data, all the rest of it. But we touched on it earlier, the tokenization piece.
Yeah.
As people are now deploying more and more agents, that are working in the background 24/7, need to understand the significant cost here in running these programs. And unless you've got the guardrails around that to understand what that agent is doing, how do you know for sure that it's taking the right data, developing the right models? It may actually give you a result you're expecting, but unless you have an understanding of what that model has done, how can you be sure that it's done it correctly?
Well, absolutely. And this is where the concept we think of AI centers of excellence can come into play, where you can monitor that end-to-end solution. So is, day one, is it delivering the value you expect? But you also have to be monitoring that on an ongoing basis. So you can't just plug it in and forget about it and hope for the best, right? You'd be opening yourself up for a lot of risk in that scenario.
But for any organization focusing and integrating AI into their solutions today, I really would humbly suggest the first thing they should look at is their data quality, data ingest. Because, as a CDO, I've seen so many fundamental issues in the way that data is being ingested. Sometimes it's laziness. It's a human in the loop, but it's a human taking, the first thing on a drop-down menu when you bring an asset into the register, and it'll be the first thing in alphabetical order, rather than putting the right thing. That's a massive effect then on your inventory. If you've got an unplanned downtime and you're looking for spare parts, and where are they? If that's not correct, that's catastrophic potentially.
Yeah. Here's a question for you there, Chris. Do you think organizations out there understand enough about how to really kind of get a proper data environment set up ready for AI? Or do you think organizations are only just realizing it now, yet the AI buzz has been around for a couple of years and only just realizing it?
I think a lot of the bigger players have relied on the consultants.
Yeah.
And whilst a lot of them don't like having to use the consultants, they do it for good reason.
Yeah.
But in many respects, over the last few years, they'll be transparent about it. They've been learning on the job. It wasn't suddenly AI came into the frame and it was the consultants that were the only ones that knew how to deal with it and how to address it and how to invest and all the rest of it and building, the right data models. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. I think we've got I'm going to keep it as opportunities rather than challenges.
Very good. And I agree as well. But let's move on, because we could be talking
in data consultancy.
Very good. So let's we could obviously be talking about this for a while. So let's move it on to actually one area of the podcast that we always do. It's called Fix It Habibi. And so we'll go through a scenario, and you just very quickly give me your thoughts each on how you would start to address this problem.
Okay.
So
quick fire round.
absolutely, yeah. So how much of the previous conversation do we wrap up into the next 60 seconds each? So the scenario, an executive asks the CTO to replicate a high-profile AI use case that they've seen a competitor do. However, this organization has a different level of data maturity, different operating constraints, and a totally different risk profile. But the project has pushed through the company anyway because they want to stay competitive. So how would you go about demonstrating that total cost of ownership to the board?
I'll happily take it.
You go.
Hit it head on. Look, the scary thing is when you're under pressure like that and you've got to deliver results, there's sometimes people find a temptation to cut corners. Believe me, in the AI space, you cannot cut corners when it comes to data quality, data governance, and ensuring that you've got cyber covered. Because the last thing you want to do, you mentioned that the CTO's got some challenges in terms of data quality. So long as you're setting an expectation that unless they focus on improving the data quality, they'll be limited with the value they can generate. I think that's the first point I'd say to the CTO. Make sure they articulate that very clearly. And the second point is that a CTO should not compromise on the security of their environment under any circumstances. Even if the CEO is putting them under pressure, you have to stand your ground and articulate why. Because all it takes is a very simple slip up or a bit of a more relaxed attitude to data ingest. And that can be catastrophic for any organization. I'm not talking about losing, 8-9 points of margin as you've seen, over the last few days of some of these organizations. It could be catastrophic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depending on the industry.
And totally erode any benefit that may have been there in the first place.
I mean, reputational risk alone.
Absolutely, yeah. Very good. Thank you for that. And Tim, any addition on that scenario?
So I think I've said it before. I'd get alignment across the board for all the key stakeholders in the board around what the strategy is around deploying this AI use case. Chris has touched, and we've touched a number of times. I really look at the data and the data pockets that are going to have to be consumed to make this AI use case successful. And I'd really think about putting in some gates about get to this, getting to gate one. What does that look like? What have we achieved? And then, really kind of manage, the growth of it. Would be what I'd be looking at.
If I may, the great thing is none of us have pushed back and said, push it back on the chief AI officer.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's good.
I'm about to bring more people in to be accountable.
And I think that's the key point though, right? It's as an organization reflecting on your level of maturity and where you're starting from. If you're not in the same position as your competitors, what are your stage gates to be able to get there? And it's almost like some of the old basics that seem to have been forgotten a little bit in our approach to how we think about the deployment of
understanding why is it the competitors are doing a better job. Peel it back. Yeah. It may be a simple fix.
Oh, are they doing a better job?
Yeah.
Is it just the shiny?
Perspective and reality.
I've read the AI book. I've got to go and deploy it.
Very good. Okay, so in this episode, we've talked about, obviously, a whole range of topics around AI and ROI and points of consideration in deploying solutions across enterprises and organizations as well, particularly as AI is becoming, business critical in some cases as well. So let's get kind of a few key takeaways and closing thoughts from yourself. So Tim, do you want to give us your last thoughts?
I think a few key takeaways. So firstly, the stats show that many AI projects are not delivering value today, but you don't have to be one of them, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's around getting at a board level, all the key stakeholders across the business bought into whatever the AI use case or project you feel you need to deliver, okay? I think secondly, it's around making sure you can then build the right culture around that within the organization. I think the third one is data. Really understand the data. And I think to Chris's point, do you have to go and spend time on a pilot that's in a lab in a controlled environment, or do you just, with the right guardrails up, just go straight into it? Maybe working with one of those leading GPU vendors that I've already mentioned, that's already got thousands of libraries of these AI use cases ready to go.
Yeah, very good. Chris?
Well, Tim's stolen the thunder. He's captured it all, I think. But just to reiterate a few points. Dr. Tim, indeed. Or should we call you Professor Tim?
I like that.
Look, you've covered all the points. But again, just to reiterate, they're the ones that I think are critical. The mindset shift. Okay, so bringing your staff along this journey of AI, getting them involved, getting them as part of the opportunity, not the challenge. Okay, that's the first thing. Data quality. Okay, fundamentally, junk in, junk out, we know that. But, as organizations are under more and more pressure, believe me, by making tweaks in terms of the data ingest quality, will return huge value on the output of anything you do with AI. Yeah. Okay. And again, leveraging AI tends to deliver you sometimes tenfold what a normal automation solution would deliver. So remember that. So you think about it, if you increment by 1% on the data quality here, that could yield 10% on the other side on the output.
And I think that's a key part of the ROI conversation, right? Just invest in your foundations because it's going to pay you back dividends at the other end of the project.
Yeah.
But I think there's a natural tendency for organizations to go straight to the other end because this bit is...
I like that. I'll steal that one off you. That's a good analogy.
And there's one other bit I really would urge organizations to focus on, though. We're in this journey. It's transitioning fast. You talked in the last session on agentic, okay? These agents are running in the background. Unless organizations are using agents this year, they're dead in the water. I'm sorry to say it. You have to be leveraging this value that's available to you, but it needs to be done with guardrails, and governance and compliance so that you ensure that they're doing the right things.
Yeah, and to create the culture, the right culture to be able to use, adopt and manage across the organizations.
Policies, process.
Absolutely. Very good. So on that, guys, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
That wraps up our episode of It's Data Habibi. So if this conversation has resonated with you today, make sure you subscribe and share it with someone who's maybe currently looking at AI investments within your organization. Let's scale AI responsibly and be able to have that explainable ROI to leadership as well. So catch us on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, or wherever else you get your podcasts, and we'll see you for the next episode. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.